Greetings from Dubai. These are 4 signals that your business needs to have to hit $10 million a year in revenue. And I know this because I've helped companies cross that $10 million mark as a fractional CFO, investor, consultant, and board advisor. And these are the exact signals you have to track. This is what separates the businesses that go from 5 million to 10 million versus those that stay stuck at 500,000 to 5 million. Everyone's always telling you to keep scaling and hiring, but nobody's actually telling you what KPIs and signals you need to track to make sure that you can move the needle to break past $10 million a year in revenue. And this is all we care about in our businesses. We're not going to do a project unless we know we can get a client past $10 million. So in this video, I'm revealing the 4 signals that we use to consistently predict which companies will hit 10 million and also leave you some thresholds and scorecards and things that we care about to help you do that yourself. This is a 4 signal model that we install before even building a budget in our companies. There's no hype, it's just P&L backed indicators. My name is David and I help companies break through 8 figures by tracking these exact signals before major growth happens. So if you want to hit $10 million a year in revenue or more, watch until the end of this video. So when it comes to the mental models around scaling a company, we care about 4 general quadrants, which is your pipeline. So your sales, that's the oxygen in your business, your contribution margin percentage, which is the financial systems of your business, making sure that you're profitable the entire way up. Your team, how great is your team? You know, we want A players when we run our companies, especially if they're in that $500,000 to $5 million mark. You want to have A players because they're going to be your senior people. They're going to be in the company the longest. They're really important. And then ops. So how good are your SOPs? How good is your hiring, recruiting processes? How quickly can you onboard a team member or even onboarding a customer, right? So ops are super important as well. Utilization rates. These are super important KPIs you need to think about when you're running your business. But in general, these are some benchmarks, right? These are the benchmarks you want to hit in your business when it comes to actually scaling. In a service business, we want our contribution margin to be greater than 35%. In a SaaS business, it has to be greater than 60%. In an e-commerce business, we want at least 20%. I've seen so many investor decks in my career where people are just calculating their financials so incorrectly, and I have to go and completely modify everything their bookkeeper did and everything that their even CFO did just so I can get these real figures and actually understand, okay, how is your business actually doing? I've seen e-commerce businesses boast 50 to 60% gross profits, and then when I actually move things around and I find that their financial systems just weren't working, it's like actually your contribution margin's like 20% or 15%, and you're dumping the rest on ads. So you're left with like a 5% net profit margin. And you know, net profit margin is a really great way of doing a litmus test, don't get me wrong, but contribution margin percentage is so important. And when we go and we buy companies, we're saying, okay, they don't know that, but we know that we can improve the business just by moving around some financial statements and moving around financial systems and saying, okay, this is how you can optimize the business just like that without even changing the core business, right? And that's how we're able to deliver a quick ROI for our clients. It's because we know that they're looking at their numbers the wrong way. And if they looked at it the way we look at it, they'll be more profitable, they'll execute faster because they have more clarity, and they're going to get a faster return on investment, right? And that's what people want. They want a return in under 30 days. Everybody has a short attention span. And one of the interesting things about having a financial system is you're able to compress timeframes that are typically 6 to 12 months into 3-month periods. And that becomes more digestible for a CEO, especially somebody new into what we do with the systems. So here's some more tests you can run. Is your CAC, the cost to acquire a customer, less than half of your direct labor costs, right? I strongly recommend you go and you watch that financial systems video that I posted so that you can understand exactly what I mean here. It's the bookkeeping systems video. I'll put it in the thumbnail in the top right. Is LTV at least 3 times the cost to acquire a customer? I have companies where our LTV is infinite, and that's because churn's 0, or we just charge so much that the payback period is higher than what it costs to acquire the customer. Is direct labor utilization, your actual fulfillment team, greater than 90%? How are you measuring utilization? These are some tests you need to ask yourself before you're going to say, okay, I'm ready to start growing the company. So when are you ready to scale? Contribution margin first. We want to know that we're having a profitable business model. The unit economics make sense. We're able to scale the company just alone from contribution margin. Capacity. What does capacity mean? It means your back end won't break as you scale. How do we measure capacity? Utilization rates. And we have a whole ton of KPIs that we use to measure utilization percentage, but I'm going to give you the general top line of what that means. SLA rates, right? So how quickly are you pushing through the fulfillment side of your customers and actually delivering for your customers? And then backlog. So how many customers are actually coming in the door that you have to put on a wait list? We have a really long wait list. It's at least a month to 3 months for any new clients, right? The backlog is super important. Then the way we measure capacity is with staff cost. So the cost of your direct labor, there's different ways to measure it depending on the business context. So we're keeping this very high level. The amount of hours that they work, everybody has an hourly rate at the end of the day. Even if you get a massive payout, like an exit opportunity, you're still measuring it by some hourly rate. It could be $10,000 an hour. It could be whatever it is, but there is some hourly rate associated with what you do or what your staff does. There's a market rate. So we need to compare your staff costs times the hours that they work and then measure the utilization percentage minus the amount of times that you have to go back and redo a job. And this is really important in service businesses like construction or roofing or solar, especially in landscaping. The client says, oh, I'm not happy with this. You have to come back and fix it. So if you're not tracking how many times you have to redo a job, you're not really tracking your utilization percentage. It's not your real utilization. So once we have that, we need to ask ourselves, are 3 months of growth operating expenditures safe? And I'm talking about the new growth you want to do. So do you have that saved up, right? 3 months of that. Is your backlog greater than 2 weeks? Yes? Scale. Well, it's scale, but like with the caveat of fulfilling all the other parts of what it takes to scale. Okay, so now we have pipeline. So how do we fill the machine? We need oxygen in the business. We need money coming in. These are the benchmarks you need to think about. So you want, for your sales qualified leads, your SQLs, you want 3 times the new quarter's revenue target in sales qualified leads. So if you had 100 this quarter, next quarter you want 300. You want to know that you can get 300 qualified leads in the door. You want to make sure your channel concentration mix is no more than 15%. I know a lot of businesses that rely on paid ads alone, and they don't have any organic, they don't have any other way to get traffic in. They have no other way to actually get leads. And that's a huge, huge problem. At first, yes, you want to scale the company and figure out what the best attribution channel is. But after a while, you want referrals, you want other ways of getting clients in the door that don't depend on paid costs, because the best companies, according to Warren Buffett, spend less than 30% on sales, general, and administrative costs. So you want to make sure that you're spending less on marketing every year. I mean, we have companies that do like 30 million a year and they grew organically through referrals and just phenomenal closers. Paid ads, inorganic traffic, acquiring companies for talent or for people or whatever for traffic, that's a way of doing it. You got to be a lot bigger to do it the right way. Top KPIs that we track to do this is sales qualified leads a week, the close rate of them, and the sales cycle in days. So we want to know how quickly we're closing and how quickly the payback period is. And that's really important when it comes to your financial systems. Then we have the manager layer. And this is about keeping the ship running, keeping a steady hand on the wheel, letting the ship go forward. Because at the end of the day, you make money in compounding by waiting. You have to let the compounding process do its own thing. So this is where department ownership comes in. You need to have direct reports for each manager in each department. And we have our own way of, deciding which departments belong to where, and our own proprietary system that we use as like a software to help us figure out all the department ownerships that we have, all the direct reports that we need to have, all the blockers, all the constraints, progress updates, etc. You need to have that every single week. And then you do a 90-day sprint once you figured out the 4 constraints you have. So the first 2 weeks, when we work with our clients or when you do it yourself, you need to pick 4 targets. Pick 4 hard targets. You got to measure your pricing, the capacity, and the pipeline of those 4 targets. How do you actually want to implement these changes? How do you want to go after the problem? Do you want to throw money at the problem? Do you want to hire people? Do you want to do a business deal? What is it going to be to take out that constraint? Then you want to assign managers to those departments based on those constraints and have weekly check-in meetings with those managers to make sure that you're hitting those targets. Days 76 to 90, you're basically adjusting your baseline, you're committing to next quarter's bets, you're making new signals, you're figuring out which constraints were successful, which weren't, which do you need to double down on, which do you need to forget. But every 3 months, pick another 4 constraints, right? And at the end of the year, you'll have 16 constraints done. I guarantee you, after fixing 16 problems in your business, you will at least double revenue. At least. Companies in this size can really scale. What do we use for accountability loops? Weekly KPIs, monthly constraints, quarterly rebalancing. It's that simple. All we care about is having weekly meetings where we're making progress. We're figuring out every month, is this still a constraint? And every quarter saying, what are we going after next? What do we need to do? What do the managers want? What do the employees want? That's the next question. Or how is the economy? These are the next questions managers have to ask themselves when they're running the business. They have to work with the CEOs to target every single part of this accountability loop, or the whole thing blows up. So I know that was a lot to digest in a short period of time, but I don't have a lot of time, and time is money. So we have to keep it short and high impact. That's what I like to do. And I know you don't like to waste your time either. So you still have to learn which KPIs matter to get you to that $10 million mark, that drive the P&L and move the organization forward, not just financially, but culturally and also on a brand recognition level. So you need to think about when it's a good time to start removing yourself as a key man in the business business as well. And this is what these systems allow you to do faster. It takes months of trial and error and countless hours trying to figure out one small detail to make everything work specifically for you. And you can fast track that by working with us. We're somebody who actually knows how to do this type of stuff, come in the business, fix the systems, give advice, implement techniques that you probably haven't seen, and actually help you scale faster. We have a proprietary system that does exactly this. So if you'd like to learn more about how we can help you scale, click on the link in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.